Today on StockCharts In Focus, we're digging into the SharpCharts Workbench, showing you around with some tips, some tricks, and some of my absolute favorite go-to features of our original award-winning price charting workbench, price charting tool, the SharpCharts Workbench. We've been spending a lot of time on ACP, our new interactive advanced charting platform, but SharpCharts still an incredible platform, one that we love here at StockCharts for good reason. And so we wanted to spend a little bit of time on the legacy tool, the original one on the site that many of you are still using. So we're going to dig into it with, like I mentioned, a couple of my favorite tips, tricks, and shortcuts for using the SharpCharts Workbench. I'll show you around some of the tools that I use in my own approach to the market, show you how to get more out of that all-important price charting tool. So you know what it is, it's all new, it's all here. It's StockCharts In Focus. All right, my friends, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me here on StockCharts In Focus, another episode of our product focus show on StockCharts TV, where, like always, we dig into the tools, dive into the features, show you around the site, because our mission here on StockCharts In Focus is really to get you more value out of everything that is available on the StockCharts website. My name is Grayson Roze. I'm the Vice President of Operations here at StockCharts.com. If you're new to the show, welcome. So good to have you. We do this show every Friday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on StockCharts TV. Of course, also up on our on-demand platform at StockChartsTV.com as well, and on our YouTube channel after the first show airs on StockCharts TV. So lots of ways to watch, lots of ways to follow, and a great one to tune into every week to make sure you're getting more value out of StockCharts. As a member, as a free user, no matter what, if you're using our tools, this is the show to watch on the channel. So today is going to be a fun one because I actually get to reach into my own personal toolkit, show you around some of the things that I personally use on the SharpCharts Workbench. We have been spending a ton of time on the show and in our newsletter and on StockCharts TV and in articles everywhere around StockCharts. We've been spending a ton of time focused on ACP. That's our new advanced charting platform, interactive, full screen, very dynamic, very new, something that we rolled out last year. That has been continuing to grow and change and really just get better and better every single week. So for good reason, we've been spending a lot of time focused on ACP, but SharpCharts is still a very, very important feature of StockCharts and will always be. I do want to stress that. We've had a lot of people asking us, hey, what's going to happen to SharpCharts? Are these charts going away? Is everything going to get replaced by ACP? And I want to stop everyone right there before we continue any further. SharpCharts is not going anywhere. We are going to continue to invest heavily in that platform, in that chart type. So the charts that you know and love, if you've been using SharpCharts for a long time, our original charting style that you're so familiar with, that is great. We love it. We love to hear it. Not going anywhere. Nothing is going to change. And in fact, a big initiative for us this year is really kind of leaning into SharpCharts now that we've spent so much time on ACP, growing the SharpCharts team, leaning into more features, new things coming to that platform very soon. So lots of things are going to happen with SharpCharts in the coming few months. And like I said, it's not going anywhere. We love this concept of having two different chart types on the site, two charting platforms for you to choose from between the interactive advanced charting platform and the sort of more static SharpCharts style. So both are going to stay around, not going anywhere. So I did want to lean into that though and highlight some of my favorite features on SharpCharts because there is a ton there. So many things that even people who've been using SharpCharts for many, many years don't know. There are a lot of tips and tricks and things that I wanted to show you today. Things that I personally use, like I mentioned, in my own approach to the market. So that's going to be our show today. We're going to really dive into SharpCharts and show you around some of my favorite features of the workbench there. So let's get to it. Of course, here we are on our members dashboard, the first page that you see when you log in. I always love to start the show here because this is really the heart and soul of StockCharts, a page that you're not going to see if you're not a member. This is not going to be familiar to you, but if you are a member, this is the page that you see when you log in and one of my favorites on the site so much here. But what we're focused on today is SharpCharts. So I'm going to go up to the top of our members dashboard. I'm going to type in a ticker symbol. Let's do square. And here we are now on what we call the SharpCharts Workbench. So you'll hear us refer to this in a lot of the shows we do, a lot of the articles, everything that we do around stock charts. We're constantly talking about the Workbench or the SharpCharts Workbench. When we say that, what we mean is really everything on this page. This is a sharp chart. So this sort of classic style that you're familiar with on StockCharts.com, that is what we call a sharp chart. And everything around your sharp charts here, including the interface up at the top of the page, as well as all of the menus and the whole interface down at the bottom of the page. Collectively, that's what we refer to as the SharpCharts Workbench. So when we say that, this is what we mean. Now, what you're looking at is my default chart. So one of the most important things, actually, that's not really, I'm not going to include it in our feature list today, but one of the things that you really should think about if you're using SharpCharts is, what is your default chart? When you type in a ticker symbol at the top of this box from any page on the site, your default chart is what we're automatically going to load at the beginning. We'll show you how to flip through different chart styles here. That's going to be one of the things that we highlight today. But your default chart is the one that appears first on the workbench. You can see that for me, I have a weekly chart up here. This is a 5-year weekly chart with a price relative line of the symbol charted against the total market, VTI, the total US stock market. And then I have a couple indicators like RSI. I have accumulation, distribution, and on-balance volume on my charts, as well as the scooter line here, which is our stock charts technical rank. But every time that I launch a sharp chart, this is what I see first. I get a weekly chart. When I run a scan and I save those results, this is the chart style that gets saved with those saved scan results. So I've set this as my default chart. You should give some thought to what your default chart is going to be. When you customize your chart, you can come down here to sort of the bottom just below your chart. You can save that as a chart style, but there's also a save as default button. So anytime you make any changes to a chart and you say, hey, I really want this to be my default chart, just remember to come down here, click save as default, and sort of reset what your default chart is. So that's sort of our tip number 0, because it's not included in the couple that we're going to highlight today, but is a really important thing to mention. Now, like I said, I wanted to show you around a couple of the key features that I love on the SharpCharts Workbench. This is not going to be an exhaustive tour of everything that's there, not going to be sort of a how-to. It's just going to be a highlight of a couple things that are crucial that I find I use all the time and wanted to make sure that you are aware of as well. So first and foremost, we're going to start up at the top. We're going to sort of work our way down the SharpCharts Workbench page. The first one that I wanted to highlight is something called the Inspect tool, or the Inspector. We sort of refer to it in both ways. It's this little checkbox up here next to the magnifying glass that a lot of people really gloss over. Now you'll see that when I first come to the SharpCharts Workbench and I hover over my chart, I just get that sort of standard cursor view. It doesn't really give me anything here. A pretty static look at this chart. I can scroll up and down, see everything, but I don't really get any interactivity to this chart. I'm just sort of looking at the chart as it is. But with the Inspect tool, you can really bring a little bit more interactivity to your chart. So it's super easy to turn on. All you got to do, come here, check this box. You see that the chart actually flashes because we reload it sort of behind the scenes. But now what you get when you hover over the chart is the crosshairs. So you see that I now have a horizontal and a vertical line pinpointing exactly where my cursor is on this chart. That is what we call the Inspect tool, or the Inspector. It gives you a couple things out of the box, but there's also a couple of things sort of behind the scenes that you might not be aware of, even if you've been using the Inspector for quite some time. So first and foremost, you get the big white box there floating right next to your cursor, which gives you a little bit more detail about exactly which bar or candle or point on the chart you are hovering over. So in this case, I'm back on the 18th of November from 2019. I get the open, high, low, close, as well as volume. And then I can also see where in that white box, the very last value is exactly where my cursor is at. So I get the price data from that day with the open, high, low, and close, but I also can see sort of where my cursor is at. Now that's reflected as well on the right side where I have that little blue price label. I'll bring it down to the bottom so you can see that really clearly. Down there at the right side of the chart, you can see that little 17 label. So that's going to tell me exactly where I'm hovering over. Super important if you're using the inspector like I do to sort of quickly on the fly identify maybe some support and resistance levels. For instance, back here in Square, I can sort of hover over here from 2017, 2018, and sort of use the inspector to pinpoint, wow, we really had a little bit of sort of prior resistance turned into support back in those years here for Square. So the inspector can be almost an on-the-fly annotation tool. That's how I personally love to use it. I love to use it to identify support and resistance levels sort of on the go without having to actually go in and annotate my chart in full. So anyways, you get that price label over on the right side of the screen, and then at the bottom of the screen, you also get the date label. So you'll see that where I hover over, that vertical line comes down, and I get the date label as well on the chart. Now, two features though behind the scenes that are incredibly important with the inspector. When you click and drag in different directions, different things happen. So in this case, I can click and drag down. When I click and drag vertically, you'll see that over on the left side of your screen, the inspector has changed. I get the sort of two horizontal lines and the little dash in the middle. But when you look over on the left side of the screen, you'll see that I now have a percent change indicator that tells me exactly how much of a change I'm seeing on this chart based on where my cursor is hovering. So it's interesting, I can see right here from sort of that peak in Square down to the lows that we saw in 2020, we can see exactly how far Square pulled back. So in this case, about a 63% pullback, sort of from peak to low. We can do that in the opposite direction. We can start here at the low and say, wow, how far has Square run since those March lows of last year? Oh my goodness, it's up 645% off those lows. So at a quick click, the inspector gives you that sort of percent change feature when you click and drag vertically. Now, there's also a click and drag horizontally feature, which does something kind of similar, but in sort of a different concept. When I click and drag horizontally, I'll start at this bar here, and I'll bring it over. That's going to tell me how many periods I'm looking at. So in this case, we're looking at a weekly chart, so each period is 1 week. So you can see over on the left side of the screen, this sort of distance that I have created on this chart with the inspector, I can see that is 78 periods or 78 weeks of Square sort of going sideways. So a couple of features built into the inspector that make it a really, really handy tool. And again, I personally love to use it for sort of on-the-fly support and resistance levels. I also find that I turn it on and off quite a bit because, like I said, it's really easy to turn this on or off just with that checkbox. So the inspector, an important one for you to go and play around with on the SharpCharts Workbench. That is our first tip of the day. Now, next up, we are going to look at the left side of the screen with these little gray boxes. We've done an entire episode actually in the past on ChartStyles, but what these are called are style buttons. So we've highlighted these in greater detail, showed you around exactly how to set up your chart styles in SharpCharts and ACP. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'll actually put a link to the description below, so you can go and check out that episode. But what I want to highlight today is a couple of things about these style buttons because it's one of my personal favorite features of the site. You notice that, like I mentioned, we're starting here with a weekly chart as my default. So anytime I type in a ticker symbol, I'm automatically going to pull up a weekly chart on the screen. But I've set up my style buttons over here, which provide quick access to different chart styles that I've saved. I've set these up for different security types and different periods. So when I hover over this, you'll get the full name, and they're pretty self-explanatory here. My first one is for stocks, equities, and it is a 1-year daily chart. Below that, I have a 2-year daily chart. Below that, I have a 2-year daily chart with sort of a full view, which we'll show in just a second. And then below that, I have my weekly view for stocks. So what this allows me to do is quickly get to any of those styles. And because my default is set at weekly, I can sort of start with that broader view and then zoom in and say, okay, now I want to look at a daily chart. I've seen how it's looking on the weekly. Let's see what the setup looks like on the daily chart. Well, now I'm looking at a 2-year daily chart. So I've sort of zoomed in. And again, because I've set up these chart style buttons, it's really, really easy to get to these styles. I don't have to go fumbling with any of the menus down below. It makes it really quick for me to access different chart styles in my account. So when I'm looking at a daily chart, this is my style. You'll see it looks pretty similar, brings in a couple of things, obviously different moving averages because it's a daily chart, but I do bring in a different price relative line here, which brings in the technology sector, the sector of this stock that I'm looking at versus the total market. So not only can I see the individual stock relative to the total market, the relative strength of the individual stock, but I can also see the relative strength of the sector that stock belongs to, in this case, the technology sector. So I've added a couple of things to my my daily charts that make it a little bit different from daily to weekly. But the point is, in one click, I can get over to my 2-year daily chart. And I can sort of zoom down from weekly to daily. And I can go even a little bit further and go down to a 1-year daily chart because that's the first one that I've set up here. So again, because I've taken the time to set up some of these style buttons, it makes it really easy to flip through these different styles. Now, in my case, I also have ETF styles, which are similar but a little bit different. Same concept, I have a 1-year ETF, I have a 2-year ETF, and a weekly ETF. I have a specific style for mutual funds if I'm looking at a mutual fund. And then I have some index styles when I'm looking at something like the S&P 500 index, the actual SPX index, which on stock charts, they all start with a dollar sign. So anytime you're looking at a symbol that has a dollar sign at the start of it, that's going to be an index. But I have an index style for daily. I have an index style for weekly. And then at the very bottom, I have some intraday styles. So actually, if I want to take that concept even a little bit further, go from weekly to daily 2-year to daily 1-year, then I can go even a little more granular. I've got a 45-day intraday style, which looks like this. So now we're looking at 45 days worth of data, and each bar represents 1 minute of trading. And I can narrow down even a little bit further and go into 2 days worth of trading. So now if I'm actually looking at exactly where I want to pinpoint my entry or my exit on the other side, I can look at just 2 days worth of trading. Again, all these bars are representing 1 minute. So it's a 2-day, 1 minute chart. So point is though, I've got access to all of these styles right over here on the left side, and it makes it really easy to jump back and forth between the views that matter to me. Now, the thing that I want to highlight too with this is that you can see this little arrow over here that pops out what we call the ChartStyles menu from the left side of the screen. So it's easy to see these and access them here. But if you want to sort of work with some of these styles, with some of these style buttons, as well as your other chart styles that you've saved to your account, you can open up this ChartStyles menu, and you see that you get quite a lot of options in here. We have a label, Your Saved Chart Styles, with a little edit button there, which allows you, if you click that, you get some editing features turned on for all of these styles. But you also get a sort of a clear look at which saved chart styles you've put as your style buttons. You see we have this little button separator here to indicate that. So these are all of my style buttons. And then below that, you get a list of all of the other chart styles that you've saved to your account. Now, I spend way too much time looking at charts on StockCharts. So of course, I'm a total chart geek, and I have a zillion chart styles saved in my account. You can see all of those here. I love to create new chart styles and play around with those. But point is, I can save all of those to my account, come in here and access them really easily by opening up that chart styles menu from the left side of the screen. So all of these are clickable. For instance, if I want to get over to a very basic candles only view, I come here, open that up, give that a click, and now we're on that chart style. So because I've sort of spent some time investing in my style buttons, I've got those accessible to me, but all of the other styles that I've saved as well are right here in this menu for me. Makes it really easy to access those. At the bottom of that, by the way, you also get some of the predefined chart styles that we've added to SharpCharts. Makes it really easy to access those at the bottom of this menu. So if you want to sort of model your workflow after John Murphy, for instance, or Alexander Elder, you can do that right here in this menu. Look for these predefined chart styles. Now, by the way, that menu is also duplicated on the workbench itself. When you come back down here, look for this little ChartStyles label. This is how you actually can save and add new. We highlighted the save as default feature, but you can also add new chart styles, replace them, delete them. All of those functions are accessible to you right here from the workbench. And you get that same menu here. When you give that a click, you get a similar sort of select menu to flip through some of your different chart styles. Personally, I find that I spend a lot more time opening up this chart styles menu from the left side of the screen. I find it a little easier to read, just a nicer visual of everything that's there. But again, because I've spent so much time investing in and organizing my style buttons there at the top of the screen, Most of the chart styles that I really use frequently, I've set as style buttons, and they're accessible right from here. So we can quickly get back to our weekly chart there on the screen just by clicking that style button. So spend a little time with that. I think that you'll find that style buttons are a huge, huge workflow boost. I've had many conversations with people in the past, and I introduce them to style buttons, and they come back in a couple of weeks and they say, that was a total game changer for me on the SharpCharts Workbench. I set up all my style buttons, and now I'm just flying around the site and just flipping through all my chart styles has become so much easier. So definitely a big workflow boost there with that feature. Now we are going to scroll down to some of the more nitty-gritty controls of the SharpCharts Workbench. I wanted to show you a couple of features of this workbench that you can do that are sort of hidden for you, but they're things that I use all the time. Wanted to highlight a few of those. I'm actually going to go back up and flip over to, like I mentioned, that full view. So I'll explain this chart really quickly because we're going to show off a couple of features of the workbench using this chart. You can see now at the top, this is a 2-year daily chart, but we now have 4 of those relative strength lines. I mentioned earlier that we've got the relative strength line of the stock versus the total market, VTI. That's the blue line at the very top. So how is this stock performing relative to the total market? Below that, in my full view, this is sort of my full relative strength picture view, I've got the sector of that stock, in this case the technology sector, relative to the total market. Below that, I have a purple line, which is the industry group that this stock belongs to relative to its sector. So the market, again, if you're not familiar with this, organized into sectors, and beneath that, organized into industry groups, and then beneath that, the individual stocks that make up the total market. So what I want to look at is, how is the sector of this stock doing? How is the industry group of this stock doing relative to the sector? And then how is the stock doing relative to the industry group? When you line all those up, this is a little window into my personal analysis approach and what I do in the markets. When you line all those up, if these lines are going up and you've got a stock that's outperforming the market in a sector that's outperforming the market, in an industry group that's outperforming its sector, and that stock is outperforming the industry group, you've sort of built this 4-tiered approach to relative strength, and you end up with a true market leader. So I love to have these 4 relative strength panels readily accessible to me. Again, I've saved them to a style button. But I'm going to show you how I've set these up because there's a little trick to it that you might want to bring into some of your charts if you're interested in using relative strength. So let's scroll down here and I'll show you how I've set this chart up. Each of those is a price performance indicator. Now you've got 2 options, price or price performance, as well as a couple of other little more obscure ones. But you can do a price indicator or a price performance indicator. When you use the price performance indicator, it's going to put it into a percentage scale. So up at the top of this chart, you can see that this is scaled as a percent. I personally love to use the performance view because I like thinking about things in percentage terms. That's just kind of how my brain works. So I've set these up as price performance indicators. But the parameter for that, which is the symbol that you're going to be charting, I've got a couple of tricks in here that you might want to be aware of. So you can see that this is not hard-coded in with the symbol that I'm looking at and the sector that I want to look at and the industry group that I want to look at. We've taken this little shortcut here by using $symbol as the first one. So in this case, again, I'm benchmarking things against VTI, which is the Vanguard Total Index. I've done $VTI. Now, when I do that, that's telling the SharpCharts Workbench, hey, grab the symbol from this chart and put that relative to VTI. The colon indicates relative to, it makes it a ratio symbol. And because I'm using $symbol, that's telling the SharpCharts Workbench to automatically go and grab whatever symbol's on the chart. So when I change this, I'll go up and change it to, let's say we wanted to change this to Microsoft. Well, now I've changed the symbol of the chart. You can see all of these relative strength lines have updated. When I come back down here, now I've told the SharpCharts Workbench, hey, grab Microsoft now because that's the symbol of the chart. So $symbol automatically tells us, hey, use whatever symbol is on this chart, benchmark that against, in this case, VTI with that little colon. We can apply a similar concept with the sector and the industry for that symbol. So again, this is an individual stock that we're looking at, so it does belong to a sector and it does have an industry group as well. So what I've done is I've done $sector, which is a little shortcut in the workbench that tells us, hey, grab the sector of the symbol on the chart. Similar thing with the industry group. I've got $industry group, which tells us, hey, grab the industry group that this symbol from the chart belongs to. So to set up these 4 relative strength lines, what I've done is $symbol colon VTI, so $symbol relative to VTI. The sector versus VTI is $sector colon VTI. Then I've got $industry colon $sector. So you can see that I've put those two together to form that industry group versus sector relative strength panel. And then in the final one, I've got $symbol versus industry. So $symbol colon $industry. So that allows me to create this sort of 4-tiered relative strength view. And you can find your own uses for these little tricks, the $symbol, $sector, and $industry. It's a helpful trick if any of those things interest you. So definitely one to be aware of there, those little shortcuts. By the way, those do apply to ACP as well. So if you're using the price performance indicator or the price indicator in ACP, you can also do a similar thing here with $symbol, sector, and industry. Now, a couple of other things I wanted to highlight. I personally love to use the height feature when I'm mucking with some of these price indicators. So I'm actually going to flip us over to a different style to make this a little more clear. I'm going to bring back up that basic candles only view, and I'm going to change this to SPX. Now we're looking at the S&P 500 index, a very stripped out, very simplified view with just 1 year worth of candles. Let's say I wanted to stack a couple of charts on top of each other. I wanted the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and let's do the NYSE all stacked on top of each other in sort of equal sizes. Well, we can do that really easily by coming down here to the workbench, looking for the price indicator. I can change the parameter to be, let's do the NASDAQ first. We'll do Comp Q for the NASDAQ. And then I can set the style to candlesticks to match what I have up on the chart above. And using that height parameter, I can set that to 1, which is going to say, what is the height of this indicator panel relative to the main price panel on the chart? So in this case, what we're highlighting here is when I set that to 1, I'm going to end up with 2 charts that actually have an equal size. I'll duplicate this again. We'll add the New York Stock Exchange. Come down here, set that as candlesticks, set the height to 1. And now what we're going to end up with is 3 charts of equal height stacked on top of each other. A shortcut that I love to use. So again, now we've got our charts here. We've got the NYSE at the bottom, we've got the NASDAQ in the middle, and we've got the S&P 500 at the top. And because I've set the heights to 1, all 3 of those are equal heights. This is a great way to create some pretty cool market analysis charts. A lot of us here at StockCharts, Dave Keller, Greg Schnell, Tom Boley, a lot of us use this view to create sort of a 1 chart view of all the major indexes. You could also do this with sectors. You could do this with any group of stocks that you wanted, really anything that you can imagine. But that height feature of the SharpCharts Workbench down there at the bottom allows you to create sort of similarly sized charts all on one view. Now you can modify this if you wanted those to be a little bit smaller. You could say, well, I want them to be half height. I want them to be there, but they don't need to be as big. Well, now we've got half height views of those 2 indexes right below the S&P 500. So an interesting little trick there that I love to show people, especially to create some of those interesting market analysis charts, which are always kind of fun. Now, the final thing that I wanted to highlight as part of one of those advanced features, I'm going to actually come back to my standard default. Here on my chart, we'll get over to something that has a scooter score. We'll do Microsoft, a beautiful 5-year weekly chart here. Something that I have on my charts is the scooter line, which is our StockCharts technical rank. And you'll see that on this scooter panel, I've got the scooter line itself, which we can chart over time, but I've also got this blue line coming across my charts here. And I've put that at the 75 level. I've done that by coming down to the indicator editing panel. I've added the scooter line indicator here, as you can see, set it to below. I've made that just a black line, but you could really set it to any color that you want. Personally, I've put the height at 0.3, so it's going to be almost 1/3 of the price panel. But I've come over here and I've added an overlay to it. I've added a horizontal line overlay to it. And you can see that then for the parameters box, what I've done is just typed in 75. So that's going to set a horizontal line on the scooter line indicator, the scooter panel there below my charts. This is going to set a horizontal line at 75. It's a nice little trick. If you follow Greg Schnell, for instance, who does a lot of work with scooters, a lot of us are always trying to use that as a filter. We want to say, hey, let's stay focused on things that have a scooter value over 70 or 80 or 90, depending on sort of what level of strength you want to find, just as a filter. So, it's always interesting to see, okay, we saw, in this case, Microsoft really break down below that 75 scooter level here in sort of September, and I've got the inspector on so we can tell exactly where that is. End of August, early September, we saw it kind of breaking down below that 75 level. So it's always interesting to put those scooter lines on your indicator. If you're using the scooter indicator on your charts, a nice little trick to put that in there. But the other thing that I wanted to show is that there's actually some different options here sort of behind the scenes if you wanted to add multiple lines and if you want to put them in different colors. So let's say we wanted to put a line at 90, we wanted to put one at 75, and we wanted to put one at 50. And 90 is a really strong score, so we want to make that one green. 75 is getting a little weaker, so maybe we want to make that one orange. And the 50 line is pretty weak, so we want to make that one red as sort of a bold indicator. So what we can do is add that horizontal line indicator, come over here to the parameters box. We can type in 90 : green, and then separate it with a comma. So that's going to say put a line at 90, and that little colon tells us to make it green. So we can then type in 75 : orange, like we mentioned, comma, and then 50 : red. So now what we've got is 90 green, 75 : orange, and 50 : red, all separated by commas in that parameters box for the horizontal line. And when I hit update over here, what we're going to end up with, 3 lines on our chart, one at 90, one at 75, and one at 50. So that's kind of different important scooter levels. And because I've added those little colors to them, separated by the I've got the the value, and then separated by a colon, then the color, and I've separated each one by a comma, I can actually add multiple horizontal lines to this indicator. Now, I use this on the scooter indicator itself. I also use this on various breadth metrics that I watch. So, for instance, something like the percentage of stocks in the S&P 500 over their 200-day moving average, that's tracked below between 0 and 100, obviously, just like the scooter. So I like to put different horizontal lines on that indicator when I'm looking at it. Lots and lots of different indicators that you can do this with, and lots of use cases for adding additional horizontal lines. But a nice handy little trick that you can actually add multiple horizontal lines to your charts if you're using that indicator. And you can actually modify the color by doing the value and then colon the color that you want, separating them all with a comma. A nice little trick in there. So I kind of broke this one into to 3 things. I'm sort of thinking of the indicator tricks as one, but 3 little tricks in there for you. The $ symbol, $ sector, and $ industry options for the price or price performance indicator. We've also got the height stuff that we were looking at, the ability to actually modify your indicator heights. Let's say, by the way, that I wanted to make this scooter panel really big. Here's another use for it. If that's really important to you, you can actually make that a full height panel on this chart. Anything that you want to make big doesn't have to just be market analysis views or anything like that. Anything that you want to make big, you can do that here in the scooter panel. So, or in the by changing the height of the workbench indicator. So, and then the final one that we highlighted there, the overlay, the horizontal line, being able to set those custom parameters on anything that you're putting in. Now, the final thing that I wanted to highlight here before we wrap up today's show is this line of links at the very bottom. I use this a lot, especially the symbol summary link. So, let's say you're looking at, in this case, we're looking at Microsoft. Let's say you want a little bit of a higher level view. You want to see, maybe when the next earnings date is or what's happening in the after hours, or you want to see if you've saved it into any chart lists. You can come here to this row of links This gives you access to a lot of our different tools with that symbol that you're looking at. So if you wanted a point and figure chart of Microsoft, if you wanted a seasonality chart of Microsoft or a gallery view of Microsoft, any of those, you can come down here and this link will automatically load with the symbol that you're looking at. Like I mentioned, though, the one that I use a lot is the symbol summary link. So when I'm charting something and I want to sort of bring up that higher level view, I'll come down to the bottom of the workbench, I give that a click, hit symbol summary, and now I'm right over on our symbol summary view, sort of our high level research page for Microsoft. We were just looking at Microsoft, so I come down there, give that a click, and now I've got the symbol summary of Microsoft pulled up. This gives me access to a lot more data, a little bit of fundamentals brought in there, but sort of a technical background, a little bit of info on the scooter rank, gives me next earnings date and the last earnings date, which is always crucial. Also has after hours prices in here. There's an after hours quote that shows up when that data is available for the symbol that you're looking at. So lots and lots to play around with here. The two that I use though all the time on this page are, you've also got this row of links here that actually scroll you down the page. The two that I use all the time are the company profile. This gives you a little bit of a description of what the company does. So if you're researching individual stocks, always helpful to see that. And then also these features. So predefined scans shows you actually if this symbol has triggered any predefined scans. If you've set any alerts for this symbol, those will show up here. In this case, I don't have any alerts turned on for Microsoft, but those would show up here. And then the one that I love is chart lists that include Microsoft. So these are all of the different chart lists that I've actually saved Microsoft into. There are quite a bit of them. But if you're ever wondering, you're saying, oh, I think I saved that into a list. You can always come over to the symbol summary page, scroll down to the bottom, and we'll actually tell you which chart lists you've saved Microsoft into. So a handy little trick that I use all the time. I like to keep lists with different things in here. Actually, I keep something called my theme trades list, which is just a way to track companies that fit into different themes. So you can see Microsoft is in two of those, the cloud adoption list as well as the remote work list. So a helpful little feature there of the symbol summary page. So anyways, we covered a ton. I know this was a long episode, but hopefully you got something out of this. There are so many tips and tricks and different ways to use the SharpCharts Workbench. So much there. We've got a ton more in our documentation. Of course, we will continue to do more episodes of StockCharts In Focus on the Workbench and different features of SharpCharts, as well as ACP. Again, not going anywhere. We've had a lot of people write in and say, I really hope that you're not taking SharpCharts away. I love SharpCharts. I want to reinforce that point. SharpCharts are not going anywhere. We are only going to continue to invest heavily in that platform. We love that chart type. We're going to continue to make it better and better and better for you. In addition to ACP, so we have these two different ways to chart the market now. You really get to choose which one you prefer. So SharpCharts, a fantastic tool. Hopefully you saw some things today that you can bring into your own workflow if you're using SharpCharts. And even if you're using ACP, some of those features too, the horizontal lines, different things like that, the $ sector, $ industry group, those apply in ACP as well. So even a couple things in that platform too for you to pick up today. Anyways, I want to thank you again for joining me on today's episode of StockCharts In Focus. Always a thrill to be with you here on the show. Remember, we do this show every Friday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on StockCharts TV, also on our on-demand platform, which just launched last month, StockChartsTV.com. Separate website, separate login, but lots of access to everything that we do. Plus, you get different apps across your smart TVs, your phone, your tablet, all that good stuff. You can save things, bookmark shows, lots to check out there at StockChartsTV.com, the new on-demand platform. Also, our YouTube channel, of course, we've got this show up there every week. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go look for it there as well. Maybe even turn the notification bell on. You'll get an alert every time we post something new. Like I mentioned, we will put a link in the description down below to that ChartStyle show that we did a little while ago. But we actually covered quite a bit of it here today on this show looking at SharpCharts. So my name is Grayson Roze, Vice President of Operations here at StockCharts. Thank you so much again for joining me here on StockCharts In Focus, and we will see you very soon for the next episode. Until then, chart on, my friends.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.